Today, we're going to discuss the who, what, when, where, and why we use torque wrenches in the automotive service industry. First, let's review exactly what torque means as it applies to torque wrenches. It takes two components, a lever arm, such as a wrench, and force. The technician using the lever applies the force. These two components are applied to a nut or bolt on a given axis. Torque wrenches measure the amount of twisting force that is applied to a nut or bolt by means of a dial or calibrated arm. Torque is a turning force measured in foot-pounds. It's really simple. If a 15-pound force is applied to a 2-foot lever, this gives you 30 foot-pounds of torque. You don't have to remember this, but it helps to understand what torque is as applied to torque wrenches. Why do we use torque settings anyway? Actually, it's the vehicle and wheel manufacturers who determine proper torque on certain nuts and bolts. The metals used in engines and custom wheels are designed for specific weights and loads. A vehicle with disc brakes, custom wheels, and all foreign vehicles must have the lug nuts tightened to exact torque settings. If you use a lug wrench or impact wrench, you cannot tell how many foot-pounds of torque you've put on the lug nuts. They may be too loose or much too tight. As the vehicle speeds along the highway, the weight of the vehicle, forces of gravity due to the rotation of the wheel, and passenger load can cause the wheel to break or crack apart, or cause the wheel studs to break. In either case, loss of control of the vehicle may result. It is suggested and recommended that lug nuts on all vehicles be tightened with a calibrated torque wrench, applying proper torque to all lug nuts. Where do you find the proper torque settings for vehicle lug nuts? The most authoritative and reliable information is the tire guide. Every automotive service organization should have a tire guide in the shop. The tire guide is extremely useful in mixing and matching tires, different brands, proper inflation pressures, and, of course, torque settings for each type of vehicle. Refer to the tire guide for proper torque settings and use the torque wrench to tighten lug nuts on all vehicles. Before you say anything, we know there are many older vehicles that are not listed in the torque chart. We recommend you check with your manager for the proper torque setting on these vehicles. We've discussed what torque is and why you should torque lug nuts and where you can find proper torque settings. Let's now review how to properly use the torque wrench to tighten lug nuts. The first step is to make sure your torque wrench is properly calibrated and in good working order. Treat the torque wrench with care because it can be easily damaged. When you're putting the wheel assembly on the vehicle, make sure the wheel is seated properly over the drum. Put the lug nuts on and tighten them with your fingers. Double-check the wheel seating before you start to torque the lug nuts. Tighten one lug nut, then use the crisscross or star pattern for tightening the other lug nuts. The star pattern prevents one side from being tightened with more torque than the other side. Use the crisscross method when tightening lug nuts. Let's review one more important part. It's how you use the torque wrench. Torque wrenches are not designed to be used with a lot of force. Most torque wrenches have a click that sounds when the proper torque has been reached. When you hear the click, the torque is properly set. Don't use more force than necessary to tighten lug nuts. And that's it. Torquing lug nuts properly is a very important part of your business. It's not difficult if you follow the proper procedures. If you have any doubt or questions, check with your manager. We haven't covered all the safety rules on tightening lug nuts or using torque wrenches. But use this information as a guide only. If you have any questions or need more information, check with management.